Hello my loves. I redid my nails yesterday and I am loving them so much. I'm like so obsessed with them, I cannot stop staring at them. I had like full Christmas set on before that. I don't really know why I thought that I would do that because that is not my style. These are so much more my style. I'm loving it. Going into the new year feeling like myself is exactly what I want. I am not doing any of this new year, new me bullshit. New year, same me, because I am fantastic. I mean, I am self-aware enough to appreciate that actually maybe there's some things about myself that maybe I should change. For the most part, same me. I don't really know where that came from or what that was about, but we're talking about the best and worst books of 2025 today. We are approaching the end of the year and I just wanted to look back and reflect because honestly this year has been such a weird one for me, and like I don't have a great concept of time anyway, but especially this year I just feel like it's been a really weird blur, really struggling to tell what happened this year and what happened last year. It's been very odd. Time has warped and moved very, very slowly. Has that happened to anyone else? Is that just me? My reading has been very up and down this year as well. I feel like some months I was reading like 15 books and then some months I read like nothing. Looking back at everything I'd read this year just really reminded me of actually how many good things I've read this year. I wanted to pick out the best of the best, the worst of the worst, and share as almost like a little end of year reflection. If you want to see my opinions on every book that I read this year, then we will of course be doing our annual tier ranking either next week or the week after. I can't remember when exactly it will be from when this video is up, when it will be, but it will be within the next few weeks. We will be ranking all 80 something, 90 something books. I'm quite annoyed. I'm just gonna miss out on like 100. I think at the moment I'm on like 84 read and I very much doubt I'm gonna read like 16 books before the end of the year. I mean, we'll see. Stranger things have happened. If you want to see me rank, discuss and think about all of the books that I have read this year, keep an eye out for that because that'll be out in the next few weeks. Two caveats before we start this video. Firstly, when I say best and worst, I mean my personal favorites and my personal least favorites. I am not saying that these are the best books of the year. I'm not saying these are the worst books of the year. Most of these books didn't come out this year. I'm just saying these are the ones that I personally enjoyed the most or least. You'll probably notice a theme with the ones that I did enjoy the most that will tell you very clearly the kind of books that I do enjoy, and hopefully that will be able to tell you whether your thoughts will be similar or not. A second caveat, I've got pretty good recently at actually like planning videos beforehand and thinking at least a little bit about what I'm gonna say. I've not done that at all today. If this is a little bit more chaotic, a little bit more all over the place, words not really wording, that is why. I think we're gonna kick off with the worst books first because then we're not ending on a really sour note. First worst is actually an entire series, and that is the Artefacts of Ouranos series by Nisha Tuli. I feel like especially the worst books I've definitely ranted about at some point throughout the year, so I'm not actually gonna dwell on this for too long. If you saw my video about this series, you'll know that I did not like it. I in fact really hated it. I think most of my hate came from the first book, specifically The Trial of the Sun Queen. That is without a doubt one of the worst books I've ever read. I was about to be like, I don't want to be mean, but without a doubt, I hated that book. Let me tell you like a little bit why. This is a very like standard romantasy series. I don't remember any of the characters' names because frankly, I don't care about any of them. From what I remember, our main character girl, she's like poor and she ends up in these trials to maybe become a queen. Everyone else is like super rich fae, but she's like this poor human. And then there's trials in it, of course. And the like king obviously picks her as a favorite, but he's being so obviously sus and so obviously has ulterior motives that she's blind, she cannot see, and then she's like really surprised at the end when he turns out to be awful. Sorry for spoilers. If you care about this series, I wouldn't recommend you read it. And there's also another point of view from another guy who's like obviously supposed to be the main love interest, but that just makes it even more obvious that like the king guy is like, it's pointless making us read that story because we know that's not what's gonna happen. My main problems with this series, if I can remember correctly, past Nikki, feel free to correct me. Everything was churning. Water was churning. The sky was churning. Nadia's hips were churning. Gabriel's stomach was churning. Everything was churning. I seem to remember my problems with it were predominantly the very obvious plot. In your in-your-face foreshadowing that you could not miss unless you were a baby who could not yet read. The very deeply unlikable main character who, despite being... maybe she was a teenager, actually. I don't remember how old she was, but she acted like a 13-year-old, and she definitely wasn't supposed to be 13. She was definitely supposed to be older than that. She was incredibly annoying. And the main love interest was also not any better. He was very bland. A shadow daddy with no substance is how I would describe him. What was his name? Was it Nadir? I really did not like the guy's voice who did the audiobook for Nadir's character, because he had that really specific intonation that some male audiobook authors have, which irritates me. They do a little uptick on the end of the sentence and it sounds like they're smiling, but they're also like taking a breath, and I can't do it. I can't recreate it with my own voice, but I really hate it. It really bothers me, and he did that for like every single sentence, so I feel like that probably didn't help with my dislike of it. Yeah, past Nikki, if there's any further things to add, I will put them in here. But otherwise, I hated this book and I would not recommend any book in this series, really. The next worst is The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. Is anyone surprised? Is anyone surprised that this book is on here? If you've not been here before, I hate this man. I've never met this man. I don't really know anything about him other than that he briefly studied counseling and psychotherapy and then did a very limited amount of work in it, but then decided to base like all of his books on it as if he has like vast knowledge in the area, and actually a lot of the knowledge in his books is incredibly wrong. That is all I know about him. But that and his books, I feel like enough for me to decide that I do not like this man. I have a very intense, one-sided, parasocial, negative relationship with this man, and I hated this book. I should have learnt my lesson with The Silent Patient, but I didn't. In my opinion, The Maidens is worse than The Silent Patient. Like, The Silent Patient was... it was okay. It wasn't great. It was a thriller that had, like, in my opinion, a very dumb twist. But, you know, it was an easy to read thriller. The Maidens, on the other hand, I know for a fact that I went on a big rant about this book, and I seem to remember that I think when I was editing, I had to cut some of the rant out, because even when I was editing, I was like, that's a bit much, even for me. Like, we need to scale it back a little bit. My main annoyance with it was marketed as dark academia. Like, with the title, the front cover, it's obviously supposed to be trying to like draw in that market, and it is not dark academia in the slightest. Just because you set something vaguely in a university does not make it dark academia. Having a secret society that actually has no relevance to the plot and really isn't involved aside from on like one page does not make something dark academia. Having, in my opinion, one of the most horrible, disgusting plot reveals of what was actually happening in this thriller. No thanks. Again, the absolutely horrific, like just horrific knowledge of psychotherapy, yet you're making your main character a really well-experienced group therapist, and she's clearly the shittest therapist ever. What are you doing, Alex? He does have another book out where the main character is not a therapist, and every so often I think, should I read that? Do you think I would hate it less just because it wouldn't have all of that incorrect information in it? But then I remember everything else about his books and why I don't like them. And I think, nah, I probably shouldn't read that, actually. And look, if you like his books, that's fine. Like, I appreciate he's a very popular thriller author. I just hate him and his books. The next worst, I also have a whole video about, can you tell that I like making videos about books that I don't like? Onyx by Rebecca Yarros. I will not be reading any more of this series because I have learned my lesson and I know that I don't like it and I'm never gonna like it. I did notice a comment this morning on my video about Onyx and why I didn't like it. And actually what this person said, part of what they said, I think pretty much sums up my thoughts on this entire series. And the fact that this is 3 books, quite long books, and I can summarize it with this, I think just goes to show why this is not a good series. This is a comment from GV Naddy 8380, and I mean, they said that they liked the series. I'm glad that you liked it overall. But then the main part that I agree with, and I think summarizes a lot of how I think about this book and this series, is we go from a few chapters dedicated to sex to each chapter of them arguing again and again and again. I think Rebecca Yarros milked them too much. I completely agree. Considering it's a romantasy, so obviously the romance is like a key part of the story and the series. It was marketed very much as enemies enemies to lovers, which is fine, but then once they are lovers, you can't go back to the enemies. I mean, you can if you do it well, but you can't keep going over and over and over and over on the same things and expect it to stay interesting and not just become boring and frustrating. And I think that is where my issue with this book and also this whole series is the fact that there's just a very cyclical nature to Violet and what's his name, Xaden. I hate Xaden so much. He is one of my least favorite characters in any book ever. Him and what's his face, the one from Powerless. I don't remember what his name is, but I also don't like him. We'll be talking about him in a minute. And I think the issue I have with it as well is that they're usually not really fighting about anything important. Their arguments are usually very similar over the same things, and it's like, guys, if you can't communicate properly and figure these things out after 3 books, then maybe you just shouldn't be together. I think this book just has a lot of things combined that I have realized I don't like, and if those things are present in isolation, usually I can deal with them, but because this book has all of them, I really struggle. Not a fan of the on again, off again, toxic, arguing relationship. I don't think that's enjoyable to read. I'm not a fan of YN chosen one main character where she's so tiny and frail and really weak, but she's also somehow the most powerful person to ever exist and has 2 dragons and just survives all of these situations when really she shouldn't. I'm not a fan of moody, possessive, irritating male main character whose entire personality is that he fancies Violet, and that's pretty much it. I don't enjoy this series. I'm not going to read any more of it. I don't like it. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, but I appreciate it's really popular, so if you do like it, that's fine. I just don't. It's not for me. No thank you. And then I said we'd get onto it. Reckless, Fearless, Powerless, whatever. Reckless and Fearless, I don't remember which order they go in. Those are the 2 that I read this year. Powerless I read last year and I did not like, and I only read these 2 because my friend had read them and she wanted to talk to me about the horrific ending, so I was like, okay fine, I guess I'll read it. How I wish I hadn't. This series, the Powerless series by Lauren Roberts, is in my opinion, no, I'll say it's worse than the Artefacts of Ouranos. It's worse than the Fourth Wing series. This is the worst series I've ever read. I know this series is incredibly popular. If you enjoy it, that is absolutely fine. I think my main annoyance with this series, my main criticism of this series is that it doesn't feel like to me as a reader it was planned out very well at all, or as if the plot was really thought about beyond the first book. Obviously, I don't know Lauren Roberts. I don't know her writing process. I don't know how she planned this. I don't interact with her social media presence if she has one. So if she posted anything about the process, I do not know it. This is just how it felt as a reader experience. It felt like she wrote the first book, it did really well, and then she went, oh shit, now I need to think about a story from here. And like maybe there was a semblance of a story, but it wasn't like fully thought out. And the second book was almost just there as filler to be able to get it to be a 3-book series. The second book was pointless, not fearless, not reckless, pointless. Literally nothing happened aside from Payden and what's his name? I don't remember the guy's name, but I really dislike him. Kai. It was just Payden and Kai arguing and kind of flirting. I've never cared enough to kiss someone else's thumbs. Great for however many pages with very little plot progression, very little relationship progression. I didn't find out anything new about them other than that I hated them more than I originally thought I had. I also don't think this book was well written. I really did not like the writing style. It felt to me very much like one of those books that tries too hard to sound poetic and beautiful and deep, and it just was very cyclical. A lot of the characters just having the same thoughts over and over again, over the same things but worded slightly differently, therefore nothing really moving forward, and them not even really developing through that. It was just like it was trying to flesh out the word count, in my opinion. With that out of the way, let's move on to some of the best books of the year. You'll be surprised to know, seeing as I am a certified hater, that there's considerably more books here in the best category than there are in the worst. The first, and I think one of the only classics I've read this year, I've been really off my game with classics, but I picked a good one to read, and that is Jane Eyre by a Brontë. I can't remember which Brontë it's by. Charlotte. Why do I always think Wuthering Heights is by Charlotte? No, Wuthering Heights is by Emily. I can't remember the name of the third one. I really like the Brontë sisters. I'm just terrible at remembering their names. Anyway, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Brontë. This was such a bit of me. This is potentially one of my favourite classics I've ever read, and definitely one of my favourite books I've read this year. This is gothic. This is mysterious. A little bit creepy, but not really creepy. We follow Jane from when she's very, very young to adulthood, and I think actually, I can't remember how old she is when we leave the book, but we follow her for most of her life, her growing up, her developing her personality, and what a woman Jane Eyre is. I think the reason I like this so much is because Jane... I just realised what I was about to say. I was about to say, she's not like other women in classic books. But I don't mean like that. I don't mean like that. I mean, she is written just like as a normal woman. Like, she's not written overly hysteric or overly emotional or like only caring about children and motherhood. Like, she's just written as a normal woman. But especially at the time, that wasn't maybe necessarily a good thing. There definitely are some like comments about her and like how serious she is and how to the point she is. But I loved it. I loved that she was written like that, and she didn't really care about other people's opinions of her. She just kept being her. One of my favourite things about this story is the main love interest, who she is obsessed with. The amount of times her thoughts are just like, he's really ugly, but I really like him for some reason. I just loved her. She was an icon. The story was interesting. Like, it can feel a bit meandery and rambly at times, but I kind of like that. And I think that's one of the reasons I like a lot of classics that I do, is because you almost get like a lot of little stories in one. I really need to read more of the Brontes in general, because everything I've read from them I have really enjoyed. I haven't really been reading classics this year for some reason. Maybe next year. Next year will be the year of classics. And then from another icon, we have Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. Of course, this book was going to be on here. This was one of the best books of the year, not just in my opinion, but according to the Goodreads Choice Awards as well, I'm pretty sure. You can't go wrong with Suzanne Collins. Like, literally anything she writes, I will read, and I know that I'll probably enjoy it. She writes so well. The story is always good. It's always compelling. It's always emotional. The characters are also good. She like does a really, really good job at making you really, really care about these characters. And I love the Hunger Games world. I remember reading the Hunger Games distinctly before the films came out. I don't remember why we had to do presentations in English lit at like GCSE, but we had to do presentations for some reason, and I did mine on the Hunger Games, but it was before like the films came out, so no one really knew anything about it. And I distinctly remember one guy being like, did this actually happen? And I was like, no, we're talking about fictional books that we like. Of course this didn't happen. If it looks like the lighting has completely changed, no, it hasn't. What are you talking about? The Hunger Games was just like a very important and memorable and like really nostalgic part of my teenage years and like growing up and reading. I'm so glad that Suzanne Collins is revisiting this world and adding more to it, because I think people are always going to want that. People are always going to read it. I'm always going to read it, and she never disappoints. I think that's the thing. I'm not going to name any names for any authors who may have ruined very big franchises they had. Suzanne Collins, just, I have such faith in her to, whenever she adds something, for it to just add more to the world, add more depth, and just be enjoyable and just as horrific as the first 3 books. I'm in 2 minds about whether I hope she continues writing more in the Hunger Games world or not. On one hand, I hope she does, because I really love this world, I love these characters, but because of that reason, I also kind of hope she doesn't, because I don't want to be any more emotionally damaged than I already am by this series. But we all know if she writes more, I'll definitely be reading it. Okay, the next few books are where you might start to notice a little bit of a pattern. Then next we have Hungerstone by Dunn. I think when I read this book, I think I gave it 4 stars. I think retrospectively I would have to go back and change that to 5 stars. This is one of those books that I have thought about so often, so many times since finishing reading it, and for me personally, that is one of the things that makes me think a book is good. If it like sticks with me and I continue to think about it, or random quotes from it continue to pop into my head, that is a good book, and a book that I really enjoyed because it's stuck in my sieve-like brain. I've realised I've not been telling you what any of these books are about. Does that really matter?
Maybe!
Hungerstone. Retelling of Carmilla. I wasn't actually the biggest fan of Carmilla. I mean, I think my main criticism of it was that I thought it was too short. So actually having Hungerstone come and like flesh out, obviously it has a kind of different tale and a different spin on it. But Hungerstone sort of building on that and adding to it is like pretty much exactly what I wanted. It had the perfect gothic vibes, the perfect level of just kind of weirdness and like creepiness to give it that kind of horror feeling without it being scary. Carmilla was great. Lenore was great. Her husband was a dick. This is a very particular like niche little genre that I've realized that I really enjoy, which is Victorian women being put down repeatedly by all the men in their lives, and then them one day being like, actually I've had enough of this, and just losing it a little bit. And usually that's because of some kind of sapphic influence that's happened, and it's a very particular genre that I've discovered I really like. If you have any recommendations in that vein, please let me know, because I will eat it up every time. Another example of this, which is an honorable mention, it was so close to making it to the full list of best books, is Blood on Her Tongue by Johanna van Veen. You'll notice the theme. I also seem to like those books when they include some kind of vampire as well. This is very similar. Obviously it's not a retelling of Carmilla, but again there's just like a certain level of weirdness, and it's gothic, and just a woman that has enough one day. Another honorable mention in this vein, actually kind of to the extreme of this, is Victorian Psycho. I didn't really know how I felt about this when I first read it. Thinking back on it, I really enjoyed this book. It's quite short. It is quite an extreme example of this kind of book where a woman just has enough. You can probably guess from the name and it being based on American Psycho that it's quite extreme. But again, because it's set in the Victorian period and it has that real gothic feel to it rather than it being like modern, I think that's why I enjoy it so much. Hungerstone was my favourite out of all of those kinds of books. All of those similar like gothic, slightly unhinged women books. Perfect. Love them. Then we have what I think might potentially be actually my top book of the year. I haven't sat down and really thought about what my favourite book of the whole year was, nor do I really know if I will do that. But this potentially, if I was going to, this would definitely be a contender, and that is The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova. I think I went on a big gushing rant about this book. What an amazing book this was. If you're new here and you don't know me, I love vampires, love history, love classic, also love languages and studying, and I'm just a little nerd, okay? This book combined all of those things. History nerds pursuing Dracula across different European countries and trying to find his tomb. Dracula may also be stalking them and may potentially just be killing people, and also may potentially want to make more vampires so that they can be his like librarians. So up my street. I loved all the history in this. I can tell so much research went into this book. I have not fact checked the research. I trust Elizabeth Kostova. Obviously some things have changed because of Dracula being a mythical creature, not actually being Vlad the Impaler. But like in terms of the actual like countries and like previous documents that they were looking at about Vlad Tepes or Vlad Dracula, that was so interesting. There was so much history in it. It read very much like a classic, even though it's not a classic. I mean, it came out a while ago now. Very much felt like a classic. The way it was written, the way it read, how long it was. I need to sneeze. A good collection of characters as well. I just feel like, again, it was quite reminiscent of Dracula, with some slightly more eccentric characters and then some more like serious and grounded, and just specifically Dracula in this, like his characterization in this, amazing. Perfect. I loved him. I will always love him. Dracula is the love of my life. If you haven't read this and you like vampires and you like the more classic vampire and you like the history around it, I would really recommend. I don't think the next book is going to be a surprise to anyone. Roadtrip with the Vampire by Jenna Levine, my queen. I love her books so much. I cannot wait for her next book, even though I know there's not going to be any more vampire books. Is it about like a Grim Reaper, her next one? Cannot wait. Cannot wait. Roadtrip with the Vampire. Not my favourite in the vampire trilogy of books that she's written. The second one, What's the second one called? My Vampire Plus One. That one was definitely my favourite because Reggie is my favourite vampire out of all of these vampires. However, this just could not be on the list. I was looking forward to this book all year. If you've been here a while, you know that I love this silly little romance series. Goofy, ridiculous, funny, over the top, silly. My favourite kind of romance. It just ticks every box for me, and Jenna Levine never fails to make me laugh. I just remembered the specific silly moment in this book that made me like piss myself. It was so funny. Basil Frent would walk into the room looking as much like Timothée Chalamet as we could manage to get a 6'7" broad-shouldered vampire to look. He would shout, "Timmy Chalamet is here." Everyone would get a thrill. Basil would have his pick of excitable humans for dinner, and we'd both enjoy a laugh. That was the prank. It went terribly wrong and a lot of people got injured. The plot is always ridiculous, always solved in the most ridiculous way. I think this one potentially was the most like the least ridiculous out of all of them, like in comparison to the other two, but still very silly. The romance is always kind of sweet, kind of funny, kind of silly. The vampires are always kind of silly. It's just always a really good time, and I really, whenever I just need a little like pick me up, is this kind of book that I want. Jenna Levine, you legend. I love you. Please keep writing. I will read everything you write. 5 stars every time. The final book on here, I think will surprise some people. Do you know what? It's a surprise to me too. But it's The Company of Vengeful Crows by Lana Pecherczyk. You might remember a couple of weeks ago, I did a video about the dangerous crow boy and his plastic girlfriend. In that video, I said, like, you know, all in all, I quite enjoyed this. It was silly, it was fun. I did not anticipate becoming completely obsessed with this series. Like, I didn't think that was how I was going to end my year, but here we are. Just to like fill you in a little bit. Since that video, I have read 6 of the other books. Yeah, no, so I've read 5 of the main books, I think, and then there's a novella that I've read as well, and I'm about a quarter of the way through the 6th one at the moment. Guys, I fucking love this series. It's so silly, it's so ridiculous. And so the reason The Company of Vengeful Crows is on here is because that is the book that triggered me to read all of the rest of them and find this love of this series. But also, so far, I do think it is the best one out of the series. It's the one that I've enjoyed the most. Don't know if it was just because the first one that I read. Through my travels through reading it, The Crow Boys are my favourite, hands down. It's surprise to both me and you, a series where there are vampire boys and I like the Crow Boys more. Crazy. The book itself was silly. There's clearly a very big, like, fantasy plot and like a lot of world building that's gone on here, and there's been wars and stuff, but I didn't really understand it at the time of reading. I still don't fully understand it because the overarching world plot moves quite slowly through the series, so I haven't got to like the main war yet. To give you a very brief premise, if you don't want to go and watch my other video, but you should because it's a fun silly time. Basically, in this world, humans destroyed the earth by having a nuclear war, and then there was a nuclear winter that killed pretty much everyone. However, somehow there were mutations that happened between animals and humans, and then the Fae were created. And since the Fae were born and like everything was wiped out, the like natural magic of the world that comes from the well has returned. And the reason humans couldn't access it before was because of plastic and metal. So now that's forbidden. There's no metal or plastic allowed in this world, and there's like this group of Fae guardians who their whole job is to protect the well, and part of that is ridding the world of dangerous and forbidden plastic and metal. And like the premise is these women wake up, the nuclear winter happens, they're asleep, they wake up 2,000 years in the future when all of the Fae are there, and they all end up being like fated to be mates with one of the 12 guardians. I appreciate that sounds ridiculous, and you know what, this series is ridiculous, but it's really good. And the reason it's really good is because you can tell Lana Pecherczyk does not take herself and this series seriously. It is supposed to be a fun, silly time. It's supposed to be funny. I have laughed out loud at this series so many times. They're just unserious, fun romantasy, and apparently that's the kind of romantasy that I like. I am going to do a whole video on the entire series at some point. I don't really care if anyone wants that or not. I'm doing it. I just want to talk about this series and how good it is, and actually convince people to read it because I think it's an underrated gem of a series. look out for that at some point when I finish the series, which, going at this rate, I'll probably have finished this series by like at the end of next week. So that is my personal best and worst of the year. I would love to know what your best books of the year have been, but equally what your worst books of the year have been. You know me, I love to complain. If you want to complain, go for it. It's fun, it's cathartic, get it out. I hope you've had a good reading year, and I think the next time I see you will be in the new year. So, oh my god, that is all from me this year, I guess. I hope wherever you are, you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.